The first 2 seasons of Paradise have now introduced the public to fundamental principles already alive in the human population. The returning season of the show will guide people towards the understanding of the universe from the Paradise perspective, the role and the implications for the human population at the heart of Paradise and beyond. The hostess of the show, Sonda Davis, the mother, is not just talking about imagining paradise. She is communicating the realities of paradise as she lived the very journey all the way from paradise and beyond. All of these, Sonda Davis was continuously working with deities and divinities from heaven and earth to ensure the transition from the old system based on duality and destruction to the new system, based on reconciliation, planetary safety, and divine evolution. The first 2 seasons of Paradise Now Dialogues with the Mother aired in 2016-2017 on Vision TV. At that time, the show was the beginning of the planetary dialogue about paradise on Earth. Since then, despite the many problems that we had on Earth, people evolved towards fulfilling the fundamental principles of paradise on Earth, and the structures of paradise stabilized to bring the entire population towards a vision of peace, prosperity, help for one another, love and responsibility for the planet, nature, family, spiritual and divine evolution. In 2022, during the planetary alignment, in consensus with the cosmic and universal law, all planetary beings, all planets of the solar system declared and recognized Earth as paradise, the mother planet.
The Bible announced that in the kingdom of God, the lame shall walk and the blind shall see. That can have many meanings, but the concrete meaning of really recovering the capacity to walk, to recreate the correct motion of the body and control of the functions, and regaining the capacity to see physically, not just divinely, but physically. That is a process that will be demonstrated to you. My first priority will be to work with people with spinal cord injury, and immediately after that is visibly seen as possible, I will immediately start working with people who have severe impairment, primarily with people who are legally blind. Now, I was saying at some point that as the hope is lifted, people from the heaviest of conditions seeing solutions actually really happening in front of them. If seeing is believing, they'll see it and they will know from that point on. But other than the lifting of hope, the lifting of the knowledge and understanding, what does it take for self-healing to improve? What does it take for healing to work when there's a team working with a person or with more? Of course, we welcome all input. Nutrition is important, exercise is important. Anything that is part of the healing process will be respected, but the emphasis of what I have to teach people is the connection between their divine nature at the human level, uniting with their divine nature and the paradise through paradise at the divine level. That connection, when you start to activate your divine qualities, you activate your divine capacities. And one of the divine capacities is the divine self-healing, or the divine healing power for one to heal another. There are many other powers, and we'll be talking about that in the future, but right now we have to stay very focused on the tasks of understanding that when the human and the divine are united through the fourth dimension of paradise, the human is advancing towards higher dimensions with higher potentials, and it's all God-ordained, it's all divine, it's all for your own evolution, it's part of what the reality is. This is not an option. You can take it as an option. Of course, nobody will force you to go that wonderful path, but will definitely passionately try to show you so that you can benefit from something that exists, that is possible. Now, when more severe cases will benefit from the things that will be visibly helpful, then other people, other cases would receive the empowerment, the courage, the hope, and more understanding will develop in people, more healing will happen at the planetary level. In the first episode of this show, I announced that Paradise Now Dialogues with the Mother is the beginning of the planetary dialogue. And this is indeed the beginning of the planetary dialogue about paradise on Earth. Right now is the dimension of paradise that more and more people become compatible with, and that's ordained and has been worked on for a very long time. But paradise on earth will comprehend all people. Eventually all people will understand and will naturally function in the ways of paradise, which will surround the entire planet with an unprecedented healing power. And after the commercial break that's coming soon, I will tell you what's happening with the healing power at the planetary level after some of the most severe conditions are being healed, with all the means that we have, scientific of all kinds, esoteric of all kinds, philosophical, and obviously divine power is part of it. But the whole of the healing will benefit, and I'll tell you more. Welcome back. I'm looking forward to show you not only the healing for the blind, but also the benefits of the healing of the blind at the planetary level. Once I worked with something in particular that was never curable, the introduction of that light that makes that cure or that improvement would bring that light at the planetary level. If I work with one person, the light does not stay just with that one person. The light goes everywhere where there are people with the same type of problems. I've been working with spinal cord injury from 2005. That's when I started. I worked on nerve regeneration starting with 2002 to 2003. At that time, scientific articles were declaring, and rightfully so, that the nerves of the central nervous system do not regenerate. There was evidence of all types that once injury would occur in the spinal cord, then the nerve would stay injured. And though even autopsies done to people after they passed to show that there's no change from the time of the accident to the time years after that when people would pass away, there was no regeneration. In 2005, I had my first patient who was paraplegic and who had a gap in the spinal cord, a gap of close to 4 inches between the upper ends of the nerves that were injured and the lower. And I was working and following every day. I do have the internal perception to be able to see the nerves as they're healing. And I could see how they were healing, and with every aspect of healing there is a change in the movement. It didn't take much for the nerves to start healing. Why? Because the mother power, the God power, the divine power were working to bring that new level of healing that started to produce nerve regeneration in one person. After this person had 13 nerves that had been severed in a motorcycle accident. After the healing of those 13 nerves, and we knew exactly which they were, not only everything gradual starting to move, as soon as we reconnected the nerve, that nerve would bring the change and the motion that was made possible. And then that total reconnection made the whole body respond. From that point on, there is the learning, the relearning of the chemistry of the nerve, the relearning of the chemistry at the cellular level for the muscle, blood capillaries, nerve capillaries, so much that is physical, but none of that goes anywhere until it's touched by all factors of divine healing, which are divine light, divine life. There's much more that engages the capacity of the body to heal. The capacity was there, but it was not going anywhere until it was touched by the divine. Once that landed, once that man could move his legs in 2.5 months of treatment, everything below his injury level was moving. All he had to do was to keep exercising after that. Once the connection done and the aspects of healing were done, he didn't need me anymore. And then I could look and work with other people. But what happened in that moment, a new level of healing appeared on earth. And all of a sudden, the centers for exercise for people with injuries started to blossom all over the planet with results that were not possible before. And the scientific articles started to say the nerves do grow 1 millimeter a day. First it had to happen in one place, and then it spread throughout to a level that was planetary.
Throughout all of these, Sonda Davis was continuously working with deities and divinities from heaven and earth to ensure the transition from the old system based on duality and destruction to the new system, based on reconciliation, planetary safety, and divine evolution. The first 2 seasons of Paradise Now Dialogues with the Mother aired in 2016-2017. The first 2 seasons of Paradise Now Dialogues with the Mother aired in 2016-2017 on Vision TV. At that time, the show was the beginning of the planetary dialogue about paradise on Earth. Since then, despite the many problems that we had on Earth, people evolved towards fulfilling the fundamental principles of paradise on Earth, and the structures of paradise stabilized to bring the entire population towards a vision of peace, prosperity, help for one another, love and responsibility for the planet, nature, family, spiritual and divine evolution. In 2022, during the planetary alignment, in consensus with the cosmic and universal law, all planetary beings, all planets of the solar system declared and recognized Earth as paradise, the mother planet.
Now, I have to say that way before 2005, there were people who were told that medically that they would never recover their walking or some specific motion after they had an accident or whatever produced their spinal cord injury. And they persevered. I remember the case of a physician who actually persevered, did not give up. He had his own insight into the self-healing power of the body, and he recovered so much more, way before 2005 when I started to work with spinal cord injury. Now, he advanced a lot. 17 years it took him to recover more and more. I will look into that case to see how far he's come. But 17 years of perseverance, I was in awe, totally impressed with the fact that he kept persevering and every little change made a difference for him. And that helped him. Other people maybe received the miracle healing and they were healed. Or their own belief in healing gave them the power to recover from conditions like spinal cord injury or other conditions that happened because they believed and something did the click and it happened in their own body. But what happened, it was staying in their own body. It was not a planetary process, it was an individual process. Good, encouraging, is good that it happened for those individuals that had what it takes, persevered, or had a number of circumstances working together to help them. Wonderful. It kept hope, but not only kept hope, it worked for those people, and that's very important. One person who is better is very important. But what happened after 2005 is a planetary change, or all of a sudden, Special Olympics took a different level of manifestation. Then people with disabilities being much more optimistic, going to sports. It's like the news in the ether said, okay, we are getting better. We can start enjoying life as it is, and then just persevere until we get much better or until we get better. So you'll see people with spinal cord injury doing bungee jumping with a wheelchair, jumping with a parachute from the airplane, going and doing surfing or all sorts of sports activities, coming out of the laying in bed all day, is coming out and doing something about that. And many took it upon themselves to persevere, to get changes that were very encouraging for many. It was already the beginning of the planetary level of change in regeneration. It was a beginning. It still took years for everybody who persevered to get a little bit more changes, a little bit more change, a little bit more change. But that beginning brought a different level because that light of healing was present. So the more healing I would do with other people that had spinal cord injury, the more, many more people with spinal cord injury who knew nothing about what I was doing or who I was or how I was working, but they were going to their own recovery center somewhere in their region, at some hospital or some gym or some specialized place, physio, whatever treatment they had. And their state was different, the emotional state was different. Much more hopeful, much more active. But then the result was that scientific articles had to come back with the fact that nerves in the central nervous system are regenerating. They are growing 1 millimeter a day, which was not happening before. So something that is carved in stone up to a point is no longer carved in stone. Once the solution appears at the planetary level. I'll tell you more in the next segment to understand the importance of healing of eyesight. Hello again. We're talking about the importance of healing and the importance of the fact that when divine healing steps in, the healing is no longer just individual. Prior to divine healing, the healing is the individual, but when the divine healing steps in, whatever healing power lends to make that healing happen becomes available at the planetary level. It empowers other people to improve their self-healing. It empowers other healers to help others. And if they learn what it takes, they make it even better. So I hope that you'll learn a lot of things just by watching the show, just by watching how the healing happens. In this segment, however, I want to tell you about the importance of healing of eyesight. For the body is extraordinarily important, no question about that. But now I want to talk about the healing at the planetary level. The eyes come from the same embryonic epithelium as the skin. You'll see today that people who rejuvenate have big, strong muscles. People of an advanced age that have very capable muscles if they run and exercise, but the skin is still wrinkled. There are all sorts of creams that make it better, but they doesn't necessarily make it young. The eyes are the most complex part of the same epithelium that makes the skin. When a number of people with legal blindness are cured, the light and the power and the complexity of what it takes to cure eyesight at the legal blindness level will bring to earth, will manifest the healing power that will heal the skin. It will be part of the making people younger. As their longevity increases, their skin would be younger and will heal. A lot of the skin conditions will heal because the complexity of healing that would cure blindness will also help the healing of the skin to such extent that things that don't heal today or don't get a major healing today, there are a few conditions, but burns from burnt skin, from people who had or burned in a fire or whatever happened, severe burns, scars from severe burns will heal. After that, healing power will be increasing on earth. For people to be rejuvenated to the point where their skin looks young, not just less wrinkled, but more vibrant, more vital, that will happen after more blind people would be cured. There's a minimum for me to heal, a minimum of 10 people. If I cure 10 blind people, then throughout the world, not only eyesight will be healed much faster, will be healed spontaneously in some, and with some emotional and psychological and nutritional work, or whatever the optometrist recommends, whatever the eye specialist recommends, because there are many aspects, many conditions that help. But recovering the eyes without introducing other components there, without surgeries that would modify things, and recovering, having doctors learning how to help eye recovery without having to use instruments. Technology may not like that very much, but recovering that will eventually become the rule rather than the exception. Of course, technology has to be there for the cases that are beyond the natural recreation of the function. But you have to know that everything that we heal will heal much more than that particular thing. We'll talk more in future shows about healing. Right now, we're welcoming the last segment of the show. Hello again. Today we touched more on issues of planetary healing, healing at the planetary level. For you to understand that when healing happens in one place, it will happen in many, many places. it still has to start somewhere where the power and the know-how is brought to inspire, to help, and to empower the other ones. But it will spread, and it will enhance the healing. Many people with spinal cord injury lay in bed watching on the internet or watching TV, and they'll have something to watch, or they'll see how the healing occurs. But the whole planet will watch and see how the healing occurs all over the planet, because the healing power is lifting the healing capacity to what it needs to be. There's some things to learn. Some part of it is spontaneous, some part of it is serious work, but it becomes a possibility, it becomes a practicality. And yeah, of course, wheelchairs will be needed, and all the technology that helps people with all sorts of lesser abilities are welcome to make people's life easier. But there will be some people would just have to hang up the wheelchair, and some others will use it. But you know, to have a wheelchair a while after an accident, but after a year or so to be back on your feet, is much more humane and much more economically sound than to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. There is much more expense and much more sadness and much more loss in a condition where relying on one's own body is limited, when reality is that we can recover completely. And we learn more and more about complete recovery in many ways and in many conditions. And the interdisciplinary teams will increase so that everybody can reach a deeper understanding. A team of doctors and nurses and physiotherapists and touch therapists and divine healers and divine motivators can work together to make the entire world so much healthier that all the health expense will be reduced to the point where we have money for education. Glad to see you next time.